Hey everyone, it's Nick from the Brohio podcast. I'm actually all by myself right now. Rob left, but before he did leave, we recorded an episode with Cassie and Sabrina. So let me set the table, if you will, for just a moment. Cassie and Sabrina, they met about 4 years ago. They fell madly in love and got married after about 7 months. It was a pretty traditional marriage, man and woman, but not long after they got married, Sabrina passed along to Cassie that she wished to transition genders. So Sabrina is on that journey currently, and they're happily married, madly in love, still doing their thing. And it asks for a lot of questions. There's a lot of questions that you or I may not know the answer to. They were absolutely more than anxious to answer the questions and kind of pull the veil back and pull the curtain back, I guess we should say, and show us what's behind the curtain and kind of maybe shed a little light into their relationship, how things work, kind of the struggles they've dealt with, some of the positives they've encountered thus far. Cassie's been a long time listener to the show. Sabrina, not so much, but Sabrina was a tremendous sport, and I can't thank them enough for the time they gave us. But I do hope you learned something. I hope that we can spread positivity. I hope we can spread love with this episode. Don't be quick to judge. And sometimes people, if you don't know about someone, sometimes people are more than welcome to answer your questions. So it's my hope that I can maybe change your perspective on some things. And some of you that maybe are a little more welcoming than others, thank you. But you should never fault someone for simply being who they are. I am who I am. I'm a loud, ignorant podcaster, and you are who you are. And I love you for listening to this show, and I love you for the time you spend with us. But ultimately, I love you for who you are, and I will never, ever try and take that away from you, and I'll certainly never hold it against you, unless you do want me to hold it against you. If you know what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying. All right, guys. Well, I hope you enjoy this episode. But before we get started on the interview, let's take a quick break for a couple of our sponsors so Rob and I can eat nice food and live like sultans and kings and princes. Thanks for listening, guys. It is with great honor that the bros bring to you Cassie and Sabrina. Cassie and Sabrina, thank you for coming on the show.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Oh yeah, we got some questions, and I think you guys got some answers, because just from the start of this episode, well, before the episode, we chatted up a little bit with Cassie and Sabrina, and I said, "What's off limits?" And they said, "Fucking send it our way. Send it our way. Ask the questions." So, whatever your questions are.
So I don't remember. Did we say something on an episode where you guys wrote to us, or did you just wing it and send us an email?
No, you said, I think it was like a month ago. I can't remember which episode, but y'all went off on one of your tangents talking about trans people and whatnot. And I was there. Both of y'all were like, I don't know what the fuck of anything. Like, I don't want to offend anyone. And I was like, well, let me just help out here.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah, and I do. And I told Cassie and Sabrina before the episode, some people may not. I don't know how to word this, but some people may see the way I am and say, I don't like the way he is. And some people may see the way you guys are and say, I don't like the way you guys are. But at the end of the day, I'm doing what makes me a fucking human, what makes me happy, and is exactly what I would expect from everybody else in the world, just as I would expect you guys. But it is my hope that Rob and I can we have open hearts and we have open minds. And I hope that people listening to this episode can approach it with an open mind and an open heart and see that the people we are talking to have a reflection in the mirror, just like you and I, and just like the people listening to this episode. And I want to get one thing off the table. There is no intentions of any disrespect at all from the beginning of this. But I can tell you guys both have a great sense of humor, which will jive well with us because we're fucking juvenile idiots But I do have an agenda here. I want people to learn. I want people to grow. And I just want to spread some positivity with this episode. And I couldn't be more thankful for the opportunity to talk with you guys. And I'm going to hit the backup record button, because if I lose all this shit,
we're fucked.
I'm going to fucking stick my penis in something really dangerous.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Not again.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, let's start from the very beginning. How you guys met, or let's go there. How you guys became, not necessarily on the journey you're on now, but when you first fell in love, when you guys first was it a swipe left, a swipe right? What was it? How'd you guys meet, and how long's it been?
No, we actually met the good old fashioned way at work. I'm actually a 911 dispatcher.
Wow,
have been
really?
for the last 10 years.
Wow.
Okay. I've done that. It's awful.
Such an underthought.
It's pretty fucking terrible.
Yeah, it's a rough job.
We met at work. At the time, she was a police officer.
Okay.
And she was one of my officers, and she Facebook stalked me.
Hell yeah.
And relentlessly messaged me over and over.
Relentless.
It was relentless.
You're being dramatic here.
Anyway. And then it was
those messages were consensual.
For the sake of law here, those were consensual.
But and then like the rest is history, and that was 4 years ago.
Okay.
Let's see. We got married a whole 7 months later.
Oh wow.
Nice.
Okay. That sounds like a typical police officer marriage. I've been in law enforcement before. Dude, they fuck something and they're ready to marry it that night. And sounds like
well, I mean, I feel like we've made it longer than most police officer marriages.
You're
so
absolutely
that's
right.
very true. Yeah.
And if you guys, that's you're 100%.
That's probably because you're not a cop anymore. So that'll probably have something to do with it. But we've been married for 3.5 years. Madly in love, have our 2-year-old baby girl. Yeah, it's been a wild ride.
It sounds like it, but what I see right now, you guys are holding one another and you're smiling. So, and if you're just doing that just for us, you don't have to do that. But you genuinely seem happy, and that's what brings me the most amount of joy, is just to see two beautiful faces in love. And you guys want to share your story with us, so that's very exciting. And I couldn't be more thankful that have you guys been on I know you guys do your own podcast, but have you gone on a podcast before?
Nope. No.
Oh, hell yeah, dude.
Nice.
Fucking virgin, fucking ass.
I don't know about that, but
okay.
Yeah.
I appreciate the honesty. Us neither, so we'll figure it out. All right, so let me talk with, let me ask Sabrina first. I'm just going to go here. Law enforcement and the police, I guess, the police line of work, that's kind of consumed with a bit of like toxic masculinity, and I could imagine that that made your journey a little difficult. Whenever you were in that line of work, had you already started to deal with these emotions that, hey, maybe I'm not living my happiest life, and I need to go in a different direction to get there?
So I was in law enforcement for 10 years, and I have an ex-wife who I definitely wasn't living my best life during that time.
Yeah.
So I've kind of dealt on and off with like depression for quite some time, and kind of feeling I knew that something wasn't right, but I didn't exactly know what it was, why I really couldn't be happy or wasn't happy. And then once I did come out as transgender, work definitely didn't help that at all. We're in Texas. So as you can imagine, go ahead and, a couple being in Texas, working in a very conservative city.
Mm-hmm.
I fought to try and just be treated as a human for a very long time. And I had to give up that fight and leave because it was it kind of boiled down to, it was going to either be, me taking my own life or trying to continue a career that wasn't serving me anymore. So I stepped away.
Well, Sabrina, I can't express enough. I couldn't be happier to have you here with us today. And I'm glad you pushed through all that. And I know that I can't speak for you, but all of us go through journeys in life. All of us go through struggles. All of us go through trials and tribulations. And it's not all right, I'm through it and I'm done. Sometimes whenever you're going through something, it's a process. And I hope that where you're at in the process, you're happy and you've made progress. And I think it says enough that you're here with us that, hey, this is my fucking skin and I'm wearing it. I'm happy and you can't take my smile away. So I'm thankful that you're here with us.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. Even go back 8 months ago, I was a completely different person in a completely different mental state, and things are a whole lot better now.
Sure. I'm happy. Now let's go back to your child, I guess your adolescence, maybe your teen years, your childhood. Have you always did it always feel like there was something maybe different or something missing, or did this something that kind of came on?
So it never really felt like I fit in. Like I could never find, I didn't have very many friends. I did never fit in with like the stereotypical, guy things. Like I didn't play sports, wasn't really interested in sports, wasn't like, I tried plenty of them to try and fit in and find out like where I fit. I ended up basically just finding a job, and I started working, when I was 13, just because I was like, I can make money. Like that's the one thing I want to do. And, that's fine. It was kind of confusing because I knew that I was attracted to women, but I felt as if like I liked like the stereotypical like gay things, that like a gay guy would like. Mm-hmm. But I really didn't know what that kind of like meant.
What do you mean by that? Like you like the stereotypical?
I would bake cupcakes for my sister's like basketball team.
Oh, I'm a fucking
that's fucking sweet, man.
I'm a stereotypical gay man then.
I loved like clothing. Like I always was like, man, why like guys' clothes like they suck.
Yeah.
But why do they get all these colors and these cool different things here? I would much rather have like spent time. Most of my friends were girls. I just didn't I had a couple of close-ish friends that were guys, but I didn't do anything that they did. They were fishing, hunting, snowmobiling, dirt biking, and I was like, I'll tag along, sure, but I don't.
You're just baking cookies.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I just, I didn't know quite where I fit into things. So it wasn't as if each trans person's journey is like completely different.
Yeah.
And so you have some trans people who are like, I knew this from a super young age. Like I am, a boy in a girl's body or vice versa. And they know. And then there are plenty of us who it took a good while to figure out, like we felt something was off. We didn't fit in, and it took us quite a while to figure that out. And sometimes it's because we weren't in the right place to figure it out. We didn't have the right people who would let us try and figure it out. It wasn't safe to try and venture and figure out who we were.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's probably like super confusing time, especially because you're just like you said, you're doing these things that you would classify as something that a gay person would be into, but you're not. So it's like, okay, then right. Like who am I? Like what, what's going on? Especially younger, I can imagine how much like internal, like just almost like obsession, just trying to figure out yourself and figure out who you are. And it's, especially during that time, it's hard just being a person in your teenage years in general, let alone not having a full idea of your identity yet.
whenever you first started, you guys met whenever, obviously, at work
Right.
about 4 years ago, right?
Yep.
Whenever you guys first met, Cassie, did you think that there was something different about Sabrina, or has this kind of, I guess, come along with the journey, or how would you put that?
Are you guys talking about our sexuality?
Yeah.
Okay. So on our very first date, she downed like a giant tequila drink and said, "I'm bisexual." And I was like, "Oh, okay, cool. That's it." Like, because also she was traumatized from her ex-wife who, threw out, the F word, the F slur
Yeah.
at her, because she was doing things behind. She was creeping, sneaking, sneaky links. You know what I mean? So,
No shame
but I
in
was
that
just
game.
like, okay. I was just like, okay, like, I don't care, and then, but that was it. Like, I didn't think this would be a thing,
Right.
It just kind of evolved. You're going to talk about how we figured it out.
Yeah. So I guess we'll back up a little bit. So I've always been attracted to people. I didn't know at the time, like, it's considered pansexual.
Mhm.
So it's like, regardless of gender, don't really give, like, could care less.
Sure.
If they're cool and we vibe, that's both of us. We
Yeah, I
actually
get
both.
boners watching Matthew McConaughey movies, so I don't know what that means. Maybe
Same.
Okay.
So, but at the time, I didn't know what pansexual was. The best way I could describe it was like bisexual. And so, I thought that was going to be a huge deal to her. And I thought that was like one step onto figuring out who I was. I was out of a relationship where I had to hide that part of me. And now I was in a relationship where, I wanted to be honest from the get-go. Like, I was like, hey, I'm going to tell you this. If you're not cool with it, hey, that's fine. If you are cool with it, then, hey, we'll go from here. So we we have friends who are in the like swinger lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
And so
we've dabbled.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll say
we're not swingers, but
No.
we've explored it.
We've
It's
dabbled
not for us, but
with non-monogamy is
Yeah.
what we dabble with. Not necessarily swinging, but non-monogamy.
Okay.
Hell yeah.
And so one of our friends would never, ever guess, like, in the military, like, clean cut, bald,
super
like,
masculine, manly
yeah.
man.
We found out that he was super into cross-dressing, and so one night she was like, hey, have you ever thought about this, like, before? And
Now, mind you, at this point in time, she's 6'1", 230 bodybuilder.
I was like, super
Bald,
into bodybuilding,
covered in
like,
tattoos,
mustache, bald,
big old mustache.
235. And so, yes. So picture that. And then, so she asked me that, and I kind of think for a second, like, yes, I've thought about this, but how much can I really, like, we're already kind of like dabbling in this non-monogamy thing. And now am I going to throw this out there that, like, yes, I've thought about this before. Like, how much is too much? But like, I went full send and I was like, oh yeah, I've thought about it before. And so she goes, well, let's try it. And so ordered some clothes, good old Shein, can get a bunch of cheap shit for, for $50-$60.
They're disposable clothes, but
Pretty much. And the first time that I, like, dressed as, like, in feminine clothing, there was, like, a switch, essentially. Like, it was like, why does this feel right? Like, why is this the first time, like, I feel that this is exactly who you should have been? And, I bought, like, a cheap wig and tried to figure out makeup and all that kind of stuff.
Which one of you is better at makeup?
I'm 100% better. Yeah.
right.
The confidence.
I hardly ever even wear makeup anymore.
I love it.
So that's kind of where, and then it just progressed from there. I think we both realized, like I realized really quickly that like, oh, there's like, this isn't just some cross-dressing thing. And she realized it, but I don't think she wanted to like realize it at first. Like, she didn't want to accept it.
Yeah.
Okay. So what at first was it you would maybe around the house dress in feminine attire, and then when you guys are going out to eat, you're like, fuck, I got to put on my jeans and my Def Leppard t-shirt. And
Yeah.
is that kind of how it worked at first? And then at what point did you go to exclusively this is the direction I'm going. I'm not going to switch outfits. I'm going to be who I am. Take me through how that worked.
There's a lot there. We live not too far from an area that has what's called like the gayborhood, and so it's a bunch of LGBTQ plus bars and clubs. It's not too far from us.
Yeah. Rainbow sidewalks, the whole night.
It's got
gayborhood, man. That's where we need to move.
Yeah, I know. A parallel park in that motherfucker.
And so I went out as Sabrina the first time there, and we had a great time. It kind of stayed as like something on the weekends, kind of thing. Like when we'd go out, it was really the only place that I like outside of our home that I felt safe to do that. Like now, granted, like I wasn't really worried about people saying anything to me because at the time I was still like 235. Like I don't like I could handle myself pretty easily if somebody wants to, talk shit. And so,
I feel like that's not somebody you really try to talk shit to. Somebody who's 6'1" and stacked.
Physically imposing. Sure. No.
Yeah.
Pick on fat people like me. That's what you pick on.
So then like it kind of progressed to, hey, like, let's go out to the mall. Let's go out to somewhere that's still definitely more like progressive, like the artsy areas where I'm not too concerned about anything. But work was a huge struggle. Like they wrote policies to keep me from being able to present as Sabrina.
What kind of policies?
Wow.
So like, and in law enforcement, there's generally like a dress code or like
I'm very familiar.
Grooming standards.
Hair above the collar, above the ear, that kind of fucking shit.
Yep. And so majority of the time they're split like male, female. Like the female, these are the female standards, these are the male standards. And so how everyone found out at work actually was there was a screenshot of a social media post that I was in where I was presenting as Sabrina. It was screenshot and sent throughout the entire department. So, one fell swoop, everybody kind of knew. And that's when I started to try and figure out like, how is this going to work? And I had my supervisor at the time, luckily, like she was my biggest supporter.
Awesome.
That's great.
And tried to really help me push through and actually make some changes so that, I didn't even want to be like, I didn't want to be accepted. I just wanted to be tolerated. Like I wanted to be able to go to work as me and that's it. Just let me keep doing the job that I'm really good at. And that's it. Like you don't have to agree with me, but like, just let me live how I want to live. And so there were issues that I brought forward with the dress code. And I said, well, hey, how is this going to work? Like when it comes to hair, for instance, female officers could wear earrings, male officers couldn't. Female officers could wear like wigs or, artificial hair, as long as they kept, met the standards. They were, in a ponytail, bun, whatever the case was. And so they got rid of all that. They said, like artificial hair across the board is prohibited. We're going to go ahead and say like nobody can wear earrings. Like nail polish has to be, like flesh colored, and that like they took away a lot of things that like the female officers traditionally were allowed to do forever.
Yeah.
And then they prohibited it. So it made the female officers, it put a target on me. Everybody knew, hey, this is why they made these rules.
Yeah.
And so, like obviously I was bald at the time. So like the only way I can sit in front and be, present as me would be with the use of artificial hair, but that was prohibited. Makeup had to be, natural, or very minimal.
They were deathly afraid that she would walk in there looking like a drag queen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
That's exactly what they were afraid of.
I think they were worried about getting boners is what they were worried about.
It's so funny because like they literally could have taken it one of two ways, but instead of going the way that's more inclusive, they just they went the extreme. Yeah, that's so wild to me.
Did you feel like this is just a scandalous question, but did you have any of those kind of machismo guys kind of flirt with you a little bit after you kind of went through this? Did you notice like any sexual tension from guys that portrayed themselves as uber masculine or anything like that?
No. So I have not. Like, I very quickly, I look a whole lot different than I did when I was there. Mm-hmm. I've lost like 65 pounds. Like a lot of that was, muscle, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. I'm actually 10 days from now, I'm getting my boobs done.
She's getting titties.
Hell yeah.
You're gonna get titty.
I'm so fucking excited.
You're going to get titty fucked.
Nice.
So we're actually, since she still works there, in the like February, I think they'll have their like department banquet.
Oh, God, you're
hell yeah.
Works there.
Them titties hanging out.
Like,
hell yeah.
Exactly. That's the plan. That's the plan.
Great.
Are there some faces that you'll be happy to see whenever you do go back for that, I guess?
No, like I still see probably like the 5 people that I still don't mind seeing.
Good.
Outside of that,
fuck them all.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. It'll be more so like I will seek out the people that made life hell pretty much and show them like, hey, this is what you were afraid of. Like, really? Yeah. Like this.
My titties in your face.
Yeah.
I love titties, Sabrina.
Me too.
Everybody does.
Exactly. How can you not?
My mom used to
I
feed
literally
me
had
with
this
her titties,
conversation.
like when I was a little
I had
baby.
this conversation with a coworker the other day. Like everybody loves titties, even gay men, everyone. Like whether it's for sexual reasons or fun reasons, like everybody loves titties.
Yeah.
Right.
I used to suck them all the time when I was a little baby. Now I'm a grown man. I'm still sucking on them.
Came out of the womb a titty fiend. Okay. From the womb to the grave, baby.
Yeah. All right. Well, if one thing that drives me crazy is whenever I'm trying to have a serious conversation with somebody and they get on their phones and they're not paying attention to me. If you see me get on my phone, I'm looking there. I put the question up in the group to see if there was anyone that wanted to ask any questions. So, and there were questions popping up, good questions. So I will get there at that point, but I'm not ignoring you. I'm just reading the Facebook.
No, you're good.
Yeah, you're good.
Now, whenever you guys were already together at this point, whenever you decided to transition, right?
Mm-hmm. It was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay, 2 years ago. You've been together for 4. How long? But you guys kind of went through this together from the very beginning. There was no Sabrina. There was never an issue. There was never a point where you were kind of doing this in private without.
No, so she knew she was a part of it. Once it became a like, hey, this isn't just something I do once every, couple of months on the weekends. Like, this is who I am. Basically kind of coming out as trans. We were already in going to a couples counselor in regards to like dealing with the non-monogamy, figuring that stuff out. And so when this came about, like the non-monogamy went on the back burner and we're like, hey, I think we should probably like, this is something we have to figure out now. And so like, it wasn't easy. It wasn't something that, she just like that we both just accepted and said, hey, this is going to work. I mean, we got to a point where we had figured out how like
where we would live and
yeah.
schedule with the kids and stuff like that. And we always knew that like we would be best friends regardless of what happened. But it got really scary there for a minute because that was the first point where we really like, we thought like we might not make it.
It might not
work.
Know? I got you.
So, but yeah.
It was mainly like it came down to a lot of if like we knew we could be best friends, but was there going to be the physical attraction to me? Like she had always like she's attracted to women, but was it going to be the same attraction like to me? And so was that going to be there? And if so, like if we would be able to survive, or we would have to kind of not go our separate ways because we'd always be somewhat involved, but live separately, live our separate lives kind of thing.
And that was one of the questions that came up here, was someone asking specifically about Cassie's sexuality prior to you guys getting together. And have you, I guess, have you been attracted to men your whole life and women, or how's that worked for you?
Well, I have always been attracted to both.
Okay.
But before this, I exclusively dated men.
Okay.
Because growing up in Texas, it wasn't from a very conservative family as well. So that's also been fun with this.
That was going to be one of my questions.
That's one of the questions.
That was going to be one of my questions.
We'll get there.
We'll get into that in a minute. But so I was always like afraid of exploring my sexuality. And even before transition or anything like that, like that's part of the non-monogamy part, is like she was helping me explore my sexuality because I have wanted to forever, but was always too afraid to do it. So, but yeah, I like her and pansexual. I like people. If we vibe, I don't give a shit what's between your legs. I'll eat it regardless.
Hell yeah.
But yeah.
Do you like being eaten out, Sabrina?
What was that?
Do you like being eaten out?
Oh, absolutely.
Me too. Me too, queen. Me too, baby girl. I love it. I think that now would be, you talked about it for a second. You talked about the kids briefly, and that's something we haven't talked about thus far. You mentioned that you have a 2-year-old and a 12-year-old. I think, doing the math in my head, the 12-year-old probably came from a different relationship, but the 2-year-old came from the both of you. The 12-year-old was that from Cassie, from your prior relationship, or is that from Sabrina?
Yes.
Okay.
It's from my prior.
Okay.
I wouldn't call it a relationship, but yeah.
It happened. All right.
Those are called relationships.
Yeah.
That might be the most offensive thing you could say tonight, is calling it a relationship.
Well, I'm being awfully presumptuous. I'm sorry.
It's a wild night in a Chili's parking lot.
Yeah. I've had one of those, but I was wearing a diaper, fortunately.
At least you didn't have a souvenir for the rest of your life from it.
Yeah.
Unless you got herpes, and then which case?
That's very true. I mean,
I'm still trying to figure that out.
At Chili's parking lot, you never know.
That's the journey I'm on, trying to figure out what the fuck that sore is. How's the 12-year-old been through all this?
He had a little bit of a rough time at first, but it was just it was more like he couldn't figure out what to call her.
Okay.
But really and truly, like, kids, we found, like, because we've talked to our therapist about this, because she like specializes in LGBTQ stuff. But kids are super like resilient, and like they don't really give a shit. Like,
it's beautiful. It was fucking It's beautiful how they're not programmed to hate. You got to program them that way to be a certain way. But just how receptive they are. They don't care about color, creed, sex, hair, fucking skin, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, especially with, as far as it goes, like LGBTQ things, like as farther that we go into this, like if it was, say, our parents, you know what I mean? Our parents would have never understood something like this, like even as kids, like, because their generation, it wasn't so widely accepted, and if people understand, like, everybody's fucking different, you know what I mean? Like, not everybody's gonna like the same thing.
Right.
So I think, like, as we go and as we, progress, or I feel like we're passing these things down to to where our kids are more accepting, and then hopefully, it keeps going farther and farther down where it's not even a big deal.
Yeah, hopefully.
Absolutely.
And
Like the first time he met Sabrina, he was like, "What's going on? I'm super confused." And then he's like, "Okay, Fortnite, cool, let's go." What?
Yeah, like it was very brief, couple minutes, and that was it. And he's been very good about, he slips up on the name sometimes, or
he and
like
she.
Yeah.
the gendering, using pronouns and stuff like that. But he corrects himself and he moves right on. Like he
makes a genuine effort, which is more than half the adults around.
So he's been, it's unfortunate, he started middle school. And so there's, in middle school, like there are kids who are already assholes who've been,
tell me about it. I'm there.
So he doesn't quite realize, like we've said, hey, this might not just for your own well-being be something that you tell people, like, oh, hey, like my parents transgender, it's like we live in small town Texas. So like, literally, but like he doesn't care. Like he doesn't understand it. So he just goes around and he'll tell people. He will we went to, we were going to Pride, Cassie and I, the Pride Festival this year. We were like, hey, you can come with us. You don't have to. It's not like that big of a deal. He's like, oh no, I want to go. And once he got there, he realized that like there were going to be girls walking around with just like pasties and that's it. So he was like, oh, this is amazing. Like I want to come back every year. Like this is great.
That reminds me of your trip through Cincinnati.
Like he put his like school ID on like a Pride lanyard, and we're like, hey, like kids might say things.
They're definitely going to call you gay, kid.
Yeah.
Like he's like, I don't care. I'll just tell him I'm not. And we're like, what? Like,
all right,
okay, whatever.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But he's been really great about everything. So
yeah, that's awesome. That's so fucking like the thought that this child is so proud of you that he's not afraid to wear it on his sleeve, but he has to go out in the world and deal with people that just because they feel one way or another, they try and take his happiness away from him and try to make it seem like what he is proud of. He's proud of the people that love him, that raise him, that are giving him the world. And he has to deal with fucking people like, well, it's, you're fucking free. Your family's, it's a family full of freakazoids or whatever. But at the end of the day, we're all just people. We're just like with a beating heart. And I'm proud of I got a brother and he's a fucking douchebag, but I love that dude and I'm proud of him. And sometimes people say he's mean or he's he drinks a lot of beer.
Okay, I was wondering which brother you're talking about. Now I know.
But I love that dude, and I'm not going to let anybody try and take that away from you. Can't take my brother away from me, And I think it's beautiful that your son says, I don't give a fuck. I'm rocking with you guys, and that's a beautiful thing, and that warms my heart. And just, much like you said, children they're resilient, and they're programmed to love. And it's the people raising them that deprogram them, that turn them into hateful monsters and unreceptive fucking cunt bags. And if you push forth this nastiness, then that's just what we're going to keep on regurgitating. Is this we're just going to keep on putting bad people into the world, and that's kind of that's frustrating. But I'm happy that your son is proud of it. Your 2-year-old, I would ask, but 2-year-olds just don't give a fuck about anything. So
no, it's just there's mama and there's mommy, and that's what she calls us. That's what she knows us as, and that's it.
What's the 12-year-old call you?
He calls me Sabrina.
Okay.
It was it was more so. Well, he called me dad for a long time, and it didn't necessarily bother me. But it was one of those things where, pretty soon, I'm having facial feminization surgery. I'm having, doing everything to essentially, the goal is for people to not be able to, clock me as trans is how it's called.
Right.
And so, but that's a pretty surefire way to walk in a room and have him be like, "Hey, Dad," you know, and
Let's go take a piss.
And so, and then we also, you know, he started like middle school with new friends and all of this. And so we're like, hey, like this might be better off. You might have a better start if just call me Sabrina.
Just
and
make them think
it,
that we're
you
good
know,
old fashioned lesbians instead of,
and, you know, kind of go from there. So he calls me Sabrina. And
well, that, and also the 2-year-old started to talk and she got super confused. And then she started calling her dad. And then we're like, wait, no.
Yeah, because they repeat whatever,
They repeat,
you know,
everything.
Yeah. So we just kind of solved that problem, and
It
worked out well.
And let me ask you this, Sabrina. If say someone saw you in public and they came up to you and said, I see that you're on a journey and I want you to know that I support you and I think you're beautiful. Would you rather someone come up to you and say that and empower you, or would you rather than just keep that to themselves? I guess speak specifically about that.
I think it's everyone's going to be different.
Yeah.
But in the world that we live in now, where the people who are most vocal seem to be the assholes, having somebody come up and say, "Hey, look, I see you. You know, good luck. You look amazing." Whatever the case is, to me, I have no issues with that. It feels good. You know,
okay.
There are people I see, you know, like the pharmacist that we go to all the time at the, you know, the corner store. They'll be like, "Oh, you did something to your hair different. You know, your nails are done different. You know, this looks great." And so you know, I think everybody likes genuine compliments.
Yeah.
You know, most people do, at least. You know, as long as it's not one of those like backhanded compliments, like when people think they're giving you a compliment when they say like, that. "Oh, you look really great for a trans girl." Like, oh, like, cool.
Like, it's like you could just stop that. You look really great.
What kind of perfume do you wear?
What is it? Oh, it's
Juicy.
Viva La Juicy. Yeah.
Hell yeah, dude.
Yeah, I'm squeezing some butt cheeks over some Juicy. You're not safe around me. I'm grabbing ass over some Juicy.
Me too.
That's a good old adjective right there.
Yeah. Well, let's switch gears to just real quick. Let's talk about the family aspect of it. I guess your moms or dads or your immediate family. Has that been a struggle, or has that been a seamless kind of journey there?
Well, her parents are great. They're absolutely amazing. Been super supportive through the whole thing. Call her daughter and username and pronouns and all that stuff. They've been great. Absolutely amazing.
That's awesome.
And I mean, it took them, like, it took time. It wasn't, I wouldn't say it was definitely seamless, but it was, you know, a lot of, I mean, as soon as I came out to them, they went and saw like a counselor and said, "Hey, tell us what we need to know. How do we deal with this?
Man,
how can
awesome.
That's terrific.
We want to be successful. We want to support them." And they've been nothing but supportive since.
That's amazing.
On the other side, you have my family, who is super conservative. They I mean, they haven't been hateful at all. They just didn't understand. My mother was convinced for the longest that she was going to leave me for a man.
That Sabrina was going to leave you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, so there are a lot of people who think that like your gender identity is tied to your sexual orientation.
Yeah.
And so and that's not a thing. Like, you can say that they're cousins, they're not siblings. Like, they can be related, but they're like they don't have to be.
Yeah.
I love fucking cousins and shit. I get what you're saying there.
And so it was like she was caught up on, well, if she's a trans woman, then she has to be attracted to men, right? So like that means she's going to leave you for, you know, a man. And
it's like you are aware that some women are lesbians, right? Like,
right.
Now you see why I was afraid to explore my sexuality.
Yeah.
But no, it wasn't until like a month ago my mom like was sitting there looking at us and she's like, "I just realized like y'all are just a lesbian couple. Like, you're my daughter-in-law. And I was like, well, it's about fucking time. It's only been 2 years, Karen. Jesus.
Here's how I would think, and this is just my advice to people that are listening here. I don't really think, and that's one of my I guess pet peeves is I hate labels. So just because I have to be a straight white man, I mean, or you have to be a transitioning whatever, however it's called, or Cassie has to be a straight female. I just fucking hate that we have to worry about, like, it's even, I don't even think there should be a community. Like, I get what the LGBTQ community stands for, but I hate that we even have to have it just because we have to give people a label, just because we have to give somebody a fucking name. I mean, we're not different. Like, nobody's different. I hate labels so much.
I've actually listened to like some audiobooks and stuff. It's because the human brain wants to put everything into categories.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, it has to.
Yeah.
And people can't think outside of these categories. If it doesn't have a name, it's not real, it doesn't exist, or whatever. But just like the whole gender binary thing, I'm getting into like scientific shit.
I told you I want to learn things today, so.
But Neil deGrasse Tyson actually said it best. Like, most everything is actually on a spectrum. Mm-hmm. It's not in a category. And people they can't fathom that. So like, male and female is not it. Like, even biologists have said, like, those aren't the only two genders out there. Like, everything is on a spectrum. So anyway, sorry, I just got off on a tangent and I lost my train of thought. So
we know all about that. It's all good.
It's all right.
That's our MO. That's what we've been doing for the past 6 years. So that's all good.
Yeah.
I know. I've listened to every episode.
And people, people just like to argue.
I think it's what it is. Everybody just
like to argue over stuff. Like, is it
we're just fucking bored. Being a human sucks. I mean, that's how we're just all fucking trying to fight and just the big dick measuring contest.
And that's what I ask. I'm just asking people to listen to this. Just stop and put the argument at the back of your brain for a second. When you do want to argue, just look somebody in the face and say, you know what, I respect what you're going through, but I'm just like, I don't have to talk to you if I don't want to.
Yeah.
And it's as simple as that. Just kind of mind your own business. And the internet's kind of ruined everything because it gives everybody exposure to people all over the world. Whereas 50 years ago, people in, maybe a gay community in New York wouldn't have to hear about the opinions and values and views of Dale in Oklahoma. But now all of a sudden the internet's connected these two people. So you want to try and get your information, but you also have to sift through, just people being nasty.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like I always tell people, like, you don't have to agree with who I am, with how I live my life. But you can still be respectful. Like, you don't have to be an asshole. Yeah. You don't have to try and, take my rights away just to be able to, like, live or get, medical care, whatever the case is. I'm not saying you have to agree, you have to jump on the, the rainbow train.
Because what does it hurt?
Just don't be an asshole.
Yeah.
Like, what does it do to you if she wants titties?
It doesn't do anything.
It's another set of titties to look at.
What if Jeff, listening to this podcast, he's like, I can't believe Nick and Rob are interviewing these people, then these this nasty lifestyle. But then a week from tomorrow, Jeff is at a steakhouse and you guys are there, and Jeff has a heart attack and falls down, and Sabrina's first aid certified. Sabrina comes in, gives CPR life-saving measures to Jeff and saves Jeff's life. Well, I would probably imagine in that instance, if Jeff had to decide whether to see his fucking kids and live or have Sabrina give him CPR, he would probably opt to have Sabrina give him CPR. So you never know how your paths are going to cross with another human. And when they do cross in those moments, it doesn't matter what we are or who we are. It just matters that we are caring, compassionate humans that care about one another. And that's what matters the most. And I hope people do take that message from this episode that we're doing right here. But let's get into the nitty gritty details. And you guys said, Right at the beginning of the episode, Cassie's like, "Are you okay talking about the sexual stuff?"
Oh, we're gonna talk about some fucking, aren't we? Hell yeah,
Sabrina's
dude.
like, yeah.
Let's
But
fucking
Sabrina,
get to it.
To be clear, Sabrina, if you're giving me CPR and you have them big old voluptuous fake titties hanging out, I can't make any promises, that I'm not faking or something.
Why do you think I'm getting them for?
Yeah, I know.
I mean, yes, they cure gender dysphoria, but I'm an attention whore, so
Is that going to be expensive, or is that covered somehow, or
insurance? So it depends on your insurance, but so like gender dysphoria is like a documented, medical diagnosis, and it requires like seeing, a psychologist or all that kind of stuff, and there's like a series in order for insurance to cover those things, like the gender affirming healthcare. It's, you have to have documented gender dysphoria. You have to have sought out, hormone therapy. You have to have like lived, presented as the gender you identify with as a certain amount of time. And like insurance. Sorry.
They sound like us.
Yeah.
We get big words all the time. We can't fuck with them.
Has their own kind of requirements and whatnot for that. So I've met all of their requirements and had my letters written by all the different medical providers. And so they will, they're covering the boobs and all the like facial surgery that I'll have in December.
So do you get to pick what your nipples look like? Because I like big fucking baloney nipples, and Rob likes like little $50 nipples. It's each their own, but
I like in between.
Okay,
I'm an in
So
between.
you get to pick your nipples, Sabrina?
You don't get to pick the nipple.
Oh man!
But like you would when you start hormone therapy, it makes them change. Like they definitely, they get bigger. They change quite a bit. So that's another reason they kind of tell you like to give it at least like a year of being on hormones before you go for different surgeries. And that's usually the requirement.
Gotcha.
Because it also depends on like your natural breast growth kind of dictates like how big of titties you can get. They gotta have enough room in there to get the implant. So you're kind of better off waiting for, to try and make a little room for them in there.
How long have you been on hormone therapy?
Like 16 months.
What are the most drastic changes you've seen since you've been on hormone therapy?
Titty growth. Yeah. Like, I guess, like
they just grew on their own.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
they're not like big by any means, but like they're there.
Yeah.
And probably like the biggest like mentally, it's a huge difference.
Mm-hmm.
That's, I guess, the biggest change per se. Is not something that you can really see. I mean, granted, I lost a lot of muscle, a lot of weight. I'm, definitely don't look like a bodybuilder anymore. But there's such a huge mental change, in the positive direction. That's been the biggest impact. And then
your orgasms are way stronger.
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
they're different. Yeah, it's definitely different.
Mm-hmm.
Can you do one for us real quick, just to like a quick? Well, that was my next question. Is like, what happens to your genitals whenever you go through hormone therapy?
So there's kind of different schools of thought. Like I said, each trans person's different. Mm-hmm. So like some trans people, I'll say trans women, they don't have dysphoria about their genitalia.
Okay.
So like they don't care that they have a dick.
Okay.
Doesn't like it. That's not. It's their their face, everything else about them that that's what causes their dysphoria. That's the problem. So like I like to use mine.
Yeah.
So
yeah, me too.
Yeah.
So when you start hormone therapy, you can like lose the ability to get an erection.
Oh, no.
But that's why they'll prescribe you Cialis.
Yeah.
So to ensure that you want to use it. And then also depending on like if someone's going to get bottom surgery, so they're going to get like a vaginoplasty down the line, like what you have is what they use to build the vagina.
Yeah.
And so like if you don't get an erection for so long, then it atrophies. and you lose out on like material to use for your vagina. So even
Gotta
for
keep that fucker stretched out.
So if you
right, so even for like trans women who don't, who have a huge dislike for having a penis, they still recommend like a maintenance erection every month, basically, to kind of keep it like so it doesn't atrophy.
So does that mean
I had a maintenance erection this morning, and the morning before that, and the morning before that.
So does that mean if you have a tiny penis, you're gonna have a shallower vagina?
Yep.
Essentially, like it's
Okay.
not always the case because
Bummer.
there's several different ways that they can build a vagina.
Okay.
But if you're doing what they call the penile inversion,
Yeah.
which is then
Oh,
yes,
you're
that
laughing
does,
talking
like,
about.
No, this is the good shit. This is what I wanted to talk about.
This is yeah.
then that usually indicates like the depth of the
Dude.
vagina.
I would be so tight.
Yeah, I'd be tight. You'd be able to look in my eye and say, "I'm going to hit the bottom," and you would indeed
Bottom
hit the
out.
bottom. Yeah.
They also have just like show vaginas. They're just display
Yeah.
models. There's nothing there.
They're called zero depth.
Okay.
And so like there's still like a clitoris, and then there's still like a urethra, so they can still pee.
Okay.
But there is no depth to them, and
A
that's
showcase
some people-
vagina. Yeah.
like I mean, some people choose that. It's
It's
kind
a
of
display model.
it's
Yeah.
a personal choice.
What's your
Vaginoplasty scares me.
Yeah, I was going to say, what are your plans beyond this? You just plan to keep the equipment you got and just go with the...
Yeah, I mean, so the only other thing after I get my face done and after I get my boobs done, the only other thing I would consider doing is what's called like an orchiectomy. And it's where they take your balls. Because I don't need them. Like they're not
We're done.
they don't
No,
work
okay.
anyways.
Well,
I've had a vasectomy.
Sabrina Cassie
and I'll
already
pretty
has your
much
balls. If I know how these relationships work. I'm in one of those too, so...
So it's and that's a really like simple, easy procedure.
It just kind of get in the way at this point.
Yeah.
Can you still get...
So other than that-
that doesn't mess with your erection at all if you do that?
Well, that's why I have Cialis.
Cialis.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So, you're
So that's like
good to go.
if you see, like if you talk to a trans woman who's a porn star, a lot of them have had their balls removed, and then they just rely on
I know.
Cialis.
I've seen the videos.
I'm sure you have.
So if doing that route, if given the option, and they give you the choice, do you want to like physically have like your balls in a jar that you can keep, or do you want them just toss them in the trash?
So I've had the like displeasure of actually seeing what testicles look like after they've been
gross.
removed.
Fucking gross.
And like it would be kind of cool to have them in a jar.
Yeah.
I would definitely want them in a jar,
That's
so that way
like
I
a
can be
mason
like,
jar,
I got your
yeah.
balls.
Just on the mantle, just
Yeah, for sure.
I punked out this teacher one time in high school. I got sent to the principal's office, and he got to this weird part in the speech where he turned around to the shelf behind him and he grabbed this big yellow jar, this pickle jar, and he set it down and it had a giant fucking gallstone in it. And I started like, I was ready to puke on this dude. He's like, I almost fucking died. I'm like, I'm gonna fucking die right now, dude. If you don't get that off the desk, it's disgusting.
I've always had this thing where like if I ever had to get anything like amputated or removed, like if I'm given the option, I want to be able to keep it. I mean, it was mine.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I get it. How has the I guess comparatively the sex before you transition, and then I guess the sex now after you have gone through the hormone therapy and where you're at in the journey, how has the sex changed for you two? If you're comfortable discussing that, I'd love to learn more about that.
Well, we're both whores, and so
Yeah, you are.
like our relationship was kind of built on sex.
Yeah.
We'll say that from the beginning. It's changed, but it also hasn't.
We did butt stuff before the transition, so it's all
Yeah,
right.
so we
Us
still
too.
do butt stuff. We still, have like, regular penetrative sex,
Yeah.
and like she gets
Good old
fucked,
fashioned
like,
missionary.
I wouldn't expect
And-
you to not to. That's what's you're telling me that. I wouldn't expect you not to. Like,
Does
you can't get on top of me anymore because I'm wearing a, whatever. It's
Does a Cialis boner differ from a normal boner?
No.
Okay. I know they say like it can last forever. Like I don't know if I'd want a boner for like several hours.
I would. I just want to keep one.
Yeah, no. I mean, luckily I haven't had to deal with the, if this erection lasts for more than 4 hours, please seek medical treatment. Like I haven't had to deal with that.
Has it changed has the therapy changed your sex drive?
Yeah, I would say, it's definitely decreased.
That's a good question.
Like but it also, like, it initially kind of took a nosedive, and then it started to ramp back up, and then it still comes in like waves where it's like when I was in my bodybuilding days, there were plenty of extracurricular hormones running through my body. And like I can compare it to that time frame where like
about that.
Unfortunately.
Like all I can think about is sex, and then it happens the same way now. And I was like, well, nothing's really changed. Like,
yeah.
And what's ironic is like after the last kid, she fucking ruined me. And so my hormones have been crazy. So now I get testosterone.
Oh, really?
So we're both on HRT.
Yeah. It fucking works out.
Hell yeah.
Is there what's been the biggest challenge through all this? What's been the biggest obstacle and the thing that I guess you're most proudest that you've overcome? And I guess what's been the hardest?
I think the fact that we're still together, because most everybody who is together pre-transition doesn't survive transition.
And I think, a lot of that has to do with communication. There are a lot of people like we would sit and talk for hours and hours. We would go out, we'd be out at like a bar with the intention of just going out and having a good night and not being serious. And then we'd sit there and talk for 4 hours about all this shit. And so that was like our biggest, because we've had people ask, well, like, how were you successful? And I'm like, it's communication. Like that's what we kind of pride ourselves most in, that we will communicate and talk about everything. Like it might not be comfortable, but we're going to talk about it.
Yeah. Well, if it doesn't work out between you two, either one of you can call me. You're both gorgeous. So, okay. That's the.
Why does it not have to work out? Can we still call you?
Absolutely.
Your wife can come too.
My wife would be like, "You're fucking doing what?" Like, it was a joke. Yeah. Let me hop on some of these questions here, because there were a lot of good questions, and I do want to make sure I ask some of these questions. A lot of these are questions that we've asked already. How about, I guess this question asks about communication. This person asks, I love to hear how you two crossed that bridge together and the communication skills it took to do so. I admire the strength and flat out courage this must have taken from both of you. This speaks to the caliber of love you two possess for one another. As a married dude and a father of 4, I tip my hat to you two, but I guess they're more, has that been one of the most important things, is communication through all this?
1,000%. Like we talk about absolutely everything. Like everything, maybe to a fault.
Yeah. So one of the big things that I tell people is, I think it was, kind of my mistake, or I won't call it a mistake, it was a learning moment, is like when I came out as trans, and it happens with a lot of people, it's like once you have this realization, like you just go full bore. You're like, okay, I'm going to get hormones. And then you start talking about surgeries, and you start thinking like, this is how I want to look. And this is the person who I've always wanted to be. And so you kind of you can forget that like there's somebody else who it's a transition for them too.
Because I was like, whoa.
Yeah. Because
this is a lot.
Like she can be apprehensive, and that doesn't mean that she's not supportive of me, but she's trying to figure this stuff out as well. So like, it would be easy to look at her apprehension as being like, well, you don't want me to be happy, or you're not supporting me. Well, no, it's also like, hey, you're like changing into a whole other fucking person. So like, I'm sorry that this is a little like, I have to take some time as well. And so like, that was my fault, because, I was like, holy shit, I know who I am. I want to do all this shit. And I kind of lost sight of, hey, this is also difficult for her.
Yeah, that's
She went at warp speed.
That's something that I can assume would be extremely difficult. Because I mean, like, you or like some people, they could have been. This is something they could have been dealing with for years or maybe their entire life. But then all of a sudden, the person that they're with, they're experiencing this. You still understand, that your partner's has been going through this struggle their entire lives. But then it's like within the matter of, a year to 2 years, it's almost like it's quick for you, but for the other person, it's like it's a long process.
Right. Yeah. And
I think that's one of like the things that we struggled with the most is because she doesn't do anything half-assed. It's full send.
Hell yeah.
Like at one point before transition, she had a farmer phase and we had 100 fucking chickens and 5 goats, a duck, and all sorts of other shit.
Yeah.
But then like everything she does is full send. And so I was like, it's been 5 minutes, ma'am. Can you give me a second? Like, I'm still processing.
Yeah,
I get that.
And so, like, we got in a little tip. Like, we don't fight. We never fight. We have firm discussions. And so I was like, you got to give me a second. And she was like, well, fuck. Okay, I guess you're right. Like, I didn't realize that this is happening. And I was like, thanks.
And that's where that, like, having that counselor, that third party to be like, hey, like, yes, you can be excited. Yes, she can be happy for you, but she can also be apprehensive and have to take some time for herself. So that was, that's something I always try to get across, like when I'm speaking to the trans community as well. They're like, hey, like, keep your partner in mind. Like, yes, this is exciting. Yes, this is like, you're finally feeling like yourself, but like, don't hold it against them if they're kind of a little uneasy. That's a super important piece of this whole thing.
Yeah. And somebody asked a question, and I'm going to ask it in a different way just because I think it's kind of a funny question. But I think this is pretty much the way all marriages operate. The woman just fucking takes all the room in the bed. I don't know if you go through that, but in this house, my wife just completely absorbs all of the space in the bed. I get a sliver. I'm shaped like a juicy ass Coke bottle, but I get a sliver of this bed to sleep on every night. How is the bed situation for you two? Does Sabrina get to hog the bed, or does Cassie get to hog the bed? Or
I'm built like a 2-liter, so like I get the majority of the bed.
All right.
So plus I still sleep with my pregnancy pillow.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, no. So I've always slept on like the very edge, regardless of. So I still just sleep on the very edge, and she's got all the room that she could need.
Are you guys church goers at all? Or have you ever been religious or anything like that?
We used to be
as a child.
Okay, I didn't know if you're still actively attending church or anything like that.
No,
I think church fucking sucks. Shit, so I don't want you to feel like I'm shaming you or anything.
Yeah, no, we're just neither of us are big religion fans.
Yeah.
Not like. We dislike that people try and use religion as an argument against other people just living their lives happily. Same thing with, people want to pick and choose the arguments they use from science against the, the trans community. Same thing. People want to pick and choose religion. So we literally just cut off one of my relatives who is extremely religious, who decided to say some
couldn't get over
ass backwards shit, and we were like, all right, we're done. They're
the first ones to say that the Bible tells you not to judge people, but then that's the first fucking thing they do.
Yeah. And God's gayer and shit, man. That dude just like grabs dicks all day, putting them on, putting them on people. He's the ultimate dick toucher. They only thought about it like that.
Just sitting in a lab with a bunch of dicks sticking them on these people.
I guess I know what I'm doing today. Sabrina, when will you consider your journey complete? I mean, all of our journeys are complete the day they shut the casket on us. But when do you this journey, this part of your life, when will you say, all right, I've arrived, and this is no longer a I guess a journey. I keep on using that word. But when will you say that, all right, I've arrived, and then what size boobies are you getting? So 2 questions.
So I'll answer the easy one being 600cc implants.
D
So
cup.
they'll put me right around a D.
Hell
God
yeah,
damn.
Get it, girl. Holy
pictures
shit.
Or it didn't happen.
She's so happy.
Smack them
I'm
things around.
stoked.
And so I don't know if I will say that after like the beginning of next year, after like my facial surgery is done and it's, healed, I won't say the journey is done, but I'll say like I've accomplished a lot and I will finally be comfortable like looking in the mirror.
Okay.
At least that's the goal. That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah.
There's a few other things that take time, just like voice training is another thing that it's difficult. I don't do it just because I try and put my time towards other things. But eventually I would like to. But I would say probably like after this year's done, I will be really happy with where I end up on the journey.
Well, I know I'm just some dumbass on the other side of the country, but looking at you right now, you have nothing to be ashamed of. I know I support you 1,000,000% with everything that you would like to accomplish, but you have nothing to be. I know that the facial surgery is one of the next big stepping stones for you, but you have nothing to be ashamed of right now.
Well, thank you. Yeah, no, it's more so.
And it's not for
like
me; it's for you. I understand. I completely
you look in the
understand
mirror. You kind of look in the mirror and you're like, I want to, I would fix this or I want to fix that kind of thing. I will. Like I'm fortunate to be in the position that I'm in where, I have insurance that covers the surgeries and I'm at a place where I do like get gendered correctly, on occasion places people don't instantly, recognize until I talk at least that I'm trans. And so that's I'm fortunate to be in that position. But yeah, I think after this year, I'll be pretty happy with where I've ended up.
Are you comfortable sharing what your new line of work is? Because police, like, if you leave law enforcement, there's not a lot of options out there in terms of relatable work experience. I've gone through that, and it's tough, and I'm lucky to be where I'm at right now. But are you comfortable talking about kind of maybe what you're doing now?
So I thought the same thing. I thought that I didn't have any translatable skills. When I left, I was a family violence and sex assault detective. And so something I was very passionate about.
Absolutely. So
as soon as I left, I kind of hit the ground running and I started meeting with a bunch of different nonprofits. And I said, hey, there's a systemic issue with how law enforcement is treating sex assault investigations. I want to teach. I want to put a class together. I want to start teaching. It's not something that I didn't create the material. I compiled it and I said, hey, this is best practices across the country. So I found a nonprofit that loved what I was, they loved me, who I was, they accepted who I was, and then they recognized that I had a lot of value. So they brought me on as kind of a contracted trainer, and I started teaching. And then I found a healthcare organization that does a lot of work within the LGBTQ plus community. And I'm now their director of safety and security.
Awesome. Well, congratulations. That's fucking awesome. You. I love that.
Yeah. So it's been, that's been huge, being able to go to work every day and be me and not have to worry. And, hey, here's your office. And I don't have to worry about, being on call, working, weekends, nights, any of that stuff.
Yeah. Must be nice.
I've got
911, where's your emergency?
Yep. So I think, I'm in the best place I can be, and I still teach. Now I teach the LGBTQ plus awareness classes or cultural diversity type kind of thing. So I'm it's only just begun. I've got a lot of plans, and they have a lot of plans for kind of letting me move forward with some ideas that I have, but
I love it.
that's where I ended up.
I love
That's
that.
awesome.
Yeah.
Loved you kind of created your own little thing. That's great.
It's a niche. That's what we are.
Yeah,
Fucking
right.
people that like weird shit, and they. You know.
It's always cool when people when they have an idea of exactly what they want to do and they just fucking make it happen. Like, that's awesome. I love that.
That's exactly what she's done in just like less than 6 months. Like, she's just taken off. She's speaking at conferences. Like,
That's awesome.
she's going places, like doing the damn thing. And I'm just like, 911.
It goes without saying, we're proud of both of you.
Yeah.
I know you may not realize it, Cassie, but you do a huge service to the community, and then you as well, Sabrina. You do a huge service for everyone, and it kind of ties into my next question. Let's talk to Bill, who's listening to this episode, and Bill says, I've been fucking conflicted this shit for a long time. What advice would you give to somebody that maybe feels like they're stuck in a body that, you know, it just doesn't feel right, and they want to take the next step, but they're scared and they don't know what to do? What advice would you give to somebody like that?
So I think the first step is kind of like having, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, kind of going easy on yourself. Like, it's easy to say, like, oh, I wish I would have done this sooner, or I could have done this sooner, or I wish I would have done this, or look where I'm at now because I've waited so long. Like, how I look at it is the person I used to be and everything I went through got me to the point where I was comfortable enough to say, I'm going to explore and find out who I am. Mm-hmm. And like trying to like finding a safe place to talk to somebody is huge. And I mean, I know like the internet has its downfalls for sure. But it also has some really great resources for people who are in, you know, especially in communities where it's, you know, you were like probably not physically safe to try and explore who you are.
Yeah.
So finding like our counselor is a huge reason we're successful, and a huge reason I'm at the point where I'm at now, because I was able to talk to somebody who understood what I was going through. So reach out and find somebody that you can talk to and start like just bouncing ideas off of them.
Yeah.
Say, hey, I want to do this a lot. I mean, I was scared shitless to put on a dress, put makeup on, and go out, even to a neighborhood where I knew I was going to be fine. It was still extremely scary. I still get nervous, like going certain places, because I'm like, I don't want to stop in this gas station, or I don't want to stop in this town. So it's not easy, but if they're struggling, it might get harder at the beginning, but eventually it's going to get better, and it gets a whole lot better.
Well, that's definitely good news for. I hope that I can encourage everyone listening to just to be who you are and be who you want to be, and let your life take you in the direction that you want to go. And just, you only got one life. We're literally a speck in the grand scheme of all this. So be who you want to be and do what you want to do. And I hope that some people find some encouragement through your words and your journey. And I hope the two of you, your story gives hope to. There's people I know listening to this episode that are going through the same thing you guys are going through, and I hope it gives them hope and guidance. And yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of good that comes to this episode. Just one more thing. I got a few more questions that keep on popping up, mate. If you guys need to go,
no, we're good.
All right,
we got nothing to do.
Sabrina, have you had any? You talk about maybe those gas stations you don't like to go to, or certain places you don't like to go. Have you had any real discouraging moments out in public, or just times that you went out and you came home like, God, I hated that? Or has it all been pretty positive experiences?
I haven't dealt with too many people like actually saying something, to me. I can obviously tell when people are staring at me. Mm-hmm. It actually pisses her off more than it does me. notice, but she notices.
I'm ready
and
to fucking fight.
She starts staring
Atta
back
girl.
at I think
There's only been like one time that you've really been
Oh.
discriminated against. And I almost threw hands. But it was her birthday. We went out and I got us a
yeah.
hotel room at like a really super nice hotel. And we walked in and I went to go check in and they were like, "Oh, I'm sorry, we gave your room away." And we're like, "Excuse me? Like, I already reserved this shit." Like, are they
This hotel is like
in the neighborhood?
in the neighborhood.
Oh.
But I also looked like
Super slut.
super slut. Like
Yeah.
like super short skirt, like
Fishnets.
fishnets, thigh
High
high
heels.
boots.
You were
Like
dressed
I
like
mean,
a slut.
Fucking hot.
I'm getting all rocked up.
like so I don't think that helped the situation. But yeah, they wouldn't give us a room. They were like, nope, we
They
don't have a
refused
room.
us.
Wow.
And
Yes.
it wasn't because I had booked through a third party website. And like I called them because like I wanted my money back. It had already been charged. And they're like, "There's no reason that the reservation, should have been canceled. Like
Yeah.
everything's good on our end." And I was like, "Those motherfuckers."
Maybe they thought
Like,
you
it
were a
was the next day.
prostitute. They thought you were
well.
trying to
Yeah.
flip some tricks or shit like that, you know?
Yeah, no, that's the only time I guess like it's been very clear cut. A couple weekends ago, we were in Austin, and like my drink got drugged.
What?
And
Sorry
And
about
like-
that, by
like
the way.
Wait.
Damn it, Mick.
so, like I can drink. Like we both can drink, and tequila is our drink of choice.
Oh, boy.
And
That's my wife's
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, either fighting or fucking. That's
Yeah.
what's going on in my house.
A whole lot of fucking.
and so few drinks in, next thing you know, I don't remember majority of the evening, and
I wish I didn't remember the majority of
I
the
was-
evening.
Oh, wow.
couldn't walk, couldn't really talk, couldn't stand.
I literally had to throw her over my shoulder. An Uber wouldn't come get us, like, because she looked so intoxicated. They refused to pick us up. I went through like 6 different tries trying to get an Uber. I had to like fireman carry her down the street. Thankfully, a nice man on one of those bicycle chariot looking things. I don't know what the fuck they're called, but he was like, "We'll get in and I'll take you somewhere,"
Fuck
and
yeah.
took us to a truck yard. And I sat there like a food truck yard.
Oh, okay.
There's a food truck
I
yard.
thought you were a lot lizards.
And, yeah,
like, fuck,
and that's
man.
how I lost my kidney.
But like dumped us at a food truck yard and was like, "Hopefully she'll sober up in a little bit." And I was like, "Okay." And then like I cussed out another Uber driver that refused to take us. And there was like some random African man standing there and he's like, "Are you okay? Like, do you want to ride?" And I was like, "Please."
Like,
And she's like dead at this point, like absolutely dead. It was awful.
Like she took a picture of me, and I legitimately looked dead,
Like,
just
on
laid
the
out on the sidewalk.
Where'd you
Legs
guys-
going every which
Where-
direction.
where
like,
were you at when you came to?
in the hotel room?
In the hotel room.
Damn. I was gonna say,
Like there's a chunk of, but like probably 8 hours that
holy shit.
I don't recall.
That's hot. What'd you do to her, Cassie? What'd you do to her?
Oh,
She was-
I was
No,
gonna
I was pissed at this point.
sure. I would willingly take getting drugged if I woke up at a food truck rally. Like,
red pill,
Like-
blue pill.
like, exactly. Like, oh hell
That
yeah,
was like-
that sucked, but this is sweet. I love where I'm at now.
That was one of those things where like we don't know if it was like if it had anything to do with being trans at all, or if it was like just somebody being an asshole or whatever the case was. But either way, I'd say that wasn't exactly the best moment.
I think that was a case of someone trying to take your asshole, Sabrina. That's what that one was.
Yeah, I mean, luckily, like
All they
Cassie
had to do was ask.
yeah, like I would have given it up. Like all they had to do was ask. But
Dirty girls.
Just ask for the ass. Words I live by. Well, that's cool. I'm glad you fucking made your way out of that one for sure. That sounds like it.
You two are so much fun.
Yeah, it sounds like some Indiana Jones shit.
I know.
How you guys think have you noticed a difference in your social life since you've kind of gone through this, or is it? I mean, I imagine that's probably one of the aspects that's changed.
I mean, we still have like the same group of like a small group of friends that knew like that we had pre-transition.
Mm-hmm.
There have been a couple of people who kind of trailed off that we used to see pretty regularly, see often, and now we don't see them at all
Mm-hmm.
ever. And then kind of like in law enforcement, like your majority of the time, like your friends are other cops kind of deal. I never really had other cops as friends because I thought like, man, these cops are assholes.
Fucking
like,
bastards.
why
Yeah,
are
sure.
all these people assholes? There are a few people that I would consider, I guess, friends that weren't necessarily friends.
Yeah.
But I'd say pretty much our social circles pretty
The same.
the same. If not,
good.
it's growing because I've got the new job and I'm meeting new people and that kind of stuff.
That's awesome.
Awesome.
Well, I think I've pretty much. Are you having more questions at all, or do you guys?
I do just want to say that the one thing I do feel bad because I know you said you're going to D cups, and I feel bad as how much those bras cost. My wife had D cups, and those fucking things are so expensive. Not the titties, but the bras themselves.
Yeah.
But yeah, R.I.P. to your bank account.
It'll be worth it.
I bet it will.
A couple of them out. They'll be brand new. They'll be nice and perky, so I won't have to worry about the push-up bra right off the bat.
You don't even need a bra. You just let them puppies just hang out.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I would.
I just read a really funny question. It's making me laugh.
Okay.
The person said, "How the fuck do you guys decide where you're going to eat now?"
Oh God.
It is literally the worst thing.
We literally talk all the time about like how we need a third person, become a throuple just so they can decide where we go.
Such a good question.
Yeah.
Dude, I just throw my hands. I'm like, just fuck you, motherfuckers. Tell me what you will eat, and I'll eat that shit. Like,
Yeah.
I don't.
You got 4 women in this house.
Oh,
I
dude,
can't imagine.
It's frustrating.
That's what I'll be like. She'll say, "What do you want to do for dinner?" And I'm like, "I don't care, whatever you want." It's like, I don't care, whatever you
damn
want.
it.
I need somebody to fucking choose.
Yeah, we need a third just to
Just to make the food decisions.
yeah, just to be the decision maker.
And just while we're talking about the third, you guys said you practice. Is it, you called it non-monogamy? Is that what you called it? But
Yep.
have you guys experienced like the threesome aspect of this since you transitioned, and how has that been?
It's fun.
Yeah.
Amen.
I was hoping you'd say that.
Yeah, we like so. One of our friends who we've been friends with like pre-transition, she's always kind of been like the person that once we were like got to the point where we were comfortable venturing into the non-monogamy or bringing in a third, she was going to be the person. And so she was the person, and she still is the person.
Cool.
So
Hell
good
yeah.
for her. She's having a lot of fun. I know
Yeah.
that.
We have a lot of fun.
that we do.
I fucking love it.
And Cassie, you said that Sabrina's orgasms are a little more intense now. Can
you elaborate on that? Like in what sense?
Well, I feel like she has to elaborate on that more.
Well, yeah,
but like,
that's what I'm saying.
They're far like full body versus like concentrated,
balls
to the dick. I guess it's like, like
just the nuts.
Whereas it's like more of like a full body, just stronger.
I mean, the whole reaction is different as well.
Yeah.
What about your nipple sensitivity?
They've always been kind of a
Hot spot.
yeah. So they.
Huh. Okay, I can't
So
stand
there's
mine.
still a hot spot.
I can't stand
Yeah.
mine being touched. Like that fucking it pisses
I
me
have
off.
this general fear of mine being cut off for some reason, and I think I feel like my wife's gonna bite them off, and that's what I struggle with that. So when she touches my nipples and we're not in a sexual situation, I fucking fight back, dude.
Oh man, I'll start swatting.
Every time I've hit her, it's been during when she's fucking with my tits, and I don't want to mess with. Now, I guess with your breast surgery that's coming up in 10 days, you said, would you expect any type of additional sensitivity or that sensitivity to go away? Have they explained that to you at all?
So they're not doing they aren't putting the implants in through the nipple, like they're doing the incision underneath.
Mm-hmm.
So it's still like it could still change sensitivity, especially based on like stretching out the skin, all that kind of stuff. But hopefully since they're not going in through the nipple to put the implant in, fingers crossed, I don't lose a ton of it.
You have to let us know.
Absolutely.
I feel like
I'll give you an update.
I feel like under boob would be the way to do it.
I love side boob anyway. That's
Any boob, I'm okay with.
Yeah, side boob or under
Show
boob.
me your
too.
boob. No.
Hold on.
Wait a second. All this boob talk.
Yeah, or like when someone's wearing a bathing suit and then a little bit of the titties hanging out underneath.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool too.
I like that.
Yeah, you should just.
And now we know what kind of pictures to send y'all.
Yeah, doesn't take
we're
much
going
of that.
on a cruise in November, so I'll make sure I send them all to you.
Well, we talked about this a couple episodes. We also like when a woman's wearing the purse and the strap just splits the titties. That's another one that's
like the seatbelt.
Yeah. Just
it
like that.
accentuates.
And I really get upset when I see like a woman's feet up on the dashboard and I drive real fast to get up next to him and it's like a 13-year-old boy or like an old man or something. That's really upsetting.
Yeah.
Do you really get upset though?
Well, we'll talk about it. When we're done recording. I'll elaborate. But, I'm so thankful you guys came on the show and talked to us about your travels, your journey, and you kept a smile for us. And we'll never be able to properly repay you, but thank you so much. And Cassie, you listen to the show, so Sabrina's just a fraud when it comes to the Brohio podcast. You're the only real fan
well, it's
here.
because she had puffy nipples. That's why.
Well, you're welcome, baby.
She's
girl.
probably like, "What the fuck are you talking about?"
That happens all the time. She said something, and I'm like, I don't understand.
Yeah.
Or I cannot tell you how many times that like our kids go to get in the car, and her phone's connected via Bluetooth, and just fires up the car, and it's just y'all saying something ridiculous.
Like, oh, I fucked my dad in the ass the other day. And I'm like, oh my god.
Let's go ahead and pause that.
Sorry.
Yeah, so that happens all the time.
Sabrina, do you listen to podcasts at all?
Not really.
Not really.
No.
Well, I'll tell you a good one to listen to. The sign's actually behind her head right there. The Brohio podcast. That'd be a great place to start.
I was like, "Where are you going with this?"
Yeah. So we'd love to have you as a listener. But Cassie, thank you. How long have you been listening to the show, Cassie?
About 5 years, 5.5
holy
years.
shit! Look at you.
Did we randomly follow you on Instagram, or how'd you find us?
No, I don't really remember like why.
Kinda
I just looked at
Sabrina last with the fucking food truck
Supernatural
and shit.
under podcasts, and y'all
Okay.
were like the first ones that popped up, and I was like, "What the fuck is this?" And I think the first one I
What the
listened
fuck is
to,
this?
It's my reaction to us.
but I think the first one I listened to was Stardust Ranch.
Oh hell yeah!
He's
Yeah,
dead. He's
and I was
dead
like,
now,
"Oh
man.
well, shit! I am in love," and so I just sat there and listened to y'all all the time.
Well,
Yeah, I can definitely say from the time that we got together, because it was definitely one of those things I got in the car and I was like, what the fuck is this?
I tried. I really tried.
These
I was
fucking
like, no,
idiots.
just give it a chance. And I'd sit there and I'd listen for a little while, and
And I'm
like,
dying
I-
laughing.
But no, she's loved y'all for quite some time.
well,
I'm
thank
definitely
you.
the man in the relationship. So
Hell yeah, I'm not. So, well, I would love to after this message me your address or PO box, and we'd love to take care of you guys. I think
Oh,
that
okay.
this has been a tremendous opportunity for us.
You can let him borrow girth.
I'm gonna let him borrow something. I'm telling you, I'm gonna send him a bag of our hair.
I had to explain the fussy situation.
You want to see it, Sabrina? It's right over here.
Sure.
Definitely.
I'll send this to you. It's all hairy, but yeah,
I was gonna say it's
just a foot
See?
with
All
a
right.
with a pussy on the bottom of it, and it's
Yeah.
really kind of
Oh, it is. It's got hair flying off of it.
Yeah, there's a cats running around here, so it's just stays on
Sure.
the floor.
That thing's dangerous.
Yeah, man. Don't. Long story short,
If he smells it to you, or he sends it to you, don't smell it.
it does feel good. Not proud of it, but all right, guys. Well, thank you. I will not be able to say it enough times. Thank you.
Yeah, it was great.
And I just want to end by saying, just in the small amount of time we've spent with you, I can tell Cassie, I love you. Sabrina, I love you. And I'm thankful to have you guys as friends. And I hope that a year from now, you be more than willing to come back on the show and we can see where you're at in your journey there. And
1,000%.
Yeah. No, we greatly appreciate you having us. I think, if I can say one last thing, and it's like, have more of these conversations, for like the people who are listening, like, don't be afraid to ask the questions. And it's the same thing I tell to other people, like other trans people. I said, like, if someone's asking you a question and maybe they don't use the right term, they don't know the right terminology, but like they aren't asking you to be an asshole, like, don't be offended at the question. Like, use it as a time to educate, use it as a time to like show compassion and say, oh, hey, well, maybe we should have said this or maybe say that. But I think more of these conversations need to happen. And I think we'd be in a much better place if they did. So I 100% appreciate y'all having us on here.
Yeah, I love it. And do you get catcalled very often, Sabrina, when you're out in public now, since maybe you dress a little differently than you did 5 years ago?
No, not too often. In the neighborhood, yes, definitely.
Show me what that pussy do.
just wait till you get them titties, girl. It's gonna be all different. You won't get it everywhere. The neighborhood's gonna go crazy.
Like I said, I'm an attention whore, or just a whore in general.
Once you get those titties, I'm gonna get it everywhere too. That makes sense.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much. I'm gonna stop recording, but I would love to chat with you guys for another couple minutes here. Again, guys, this is Cassie, Sabrina. They were tremendous guests to the show, and we're very thankful. And thanks for listening to this episode of the Brohio podcast.
Thank you, guys.
And if you have any questions, you can email us, and we'll send them their way. And we'll get you in contact if that's something that you would like to do as well. We're not going to give out your guys' information, but if someone wants to come to us and say, hey, can you pass along my information? We'll certainly pass that information along to you.
You know how many emails we're going to get about wanting to see her tits? It's going to be crazy.
I know.
It's going to be unreal.
I'll put a post up in the group.
There you go.
Oh, yeah. All right. Thanks, everyone, for listening.